now I am here with Michael Nelson. He is the owner of TLC Tech, which is an IT company, but that's really not what we are going to talk about today. We're going to talk about a book that he wrote that is based around organizing our lives. It's called Goals That Matter. Look forward to diving into it. And so I think today's show is going to be probably more educational than maybe a typical show, because we're going to sort of walk through the lessons that that he shares in his book and maybe get into some of the side stories associated with those lessons. So with no further ado, welcome to the show, Michael.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, you and I know each other from the Entrepreneurs Organization, and I heard you speak, it was probably about 3 years ago or so at an event, and you were walking us through kind of how to organize a business and running our businesses. And I remember that, and I meant to go back and get the notes because I took notes pretty vigorously as you were talking about, organizing your business to succeed and so on. Now you've kind of focused in on goals, the goal piece of things, goals that matter. So if you don't mind, maybe we can have you just give a little bit of your background and then how you decided to write this book about goals.
Sounds good. And funny, that EO event you talked about, it was at our all chapter event. And I did talk a lot about goals, how I use goals to move my life forward, my personal life, my business. Back in that time, I was paying attention to my goals on a regular basis, but I didn't have it quite as well organized. And ironically, the next day I went to a mastermind retreat, and that's where the Goals That Matter system really came to life. So I had just given this presentation on goals, and at this mastermind retreat, they asked the question, what in your life is looking to end and what's looking to begin? And my business was doing great, things were going well, so I didn't want anything necessarily to end. But when I thought about what do I want to begin, I kind of struggled a little bit, and I had been enjoying these goals, and so we broke out into breakout groups. And I said, well, I don't know, but I've been doing this goal system, and I showed them my sheets. I want that. And they were all really intrigued, and I thought, I think I'm on to something here.
Interesting.
So that's where this started. I actually registered goalsthatmatter.com that weekend in that mastermind retreat. And little backstory, my brother, it was hugely an important part of this book, had reached out to me several months before. We were in New York City, and he told me he was just miserable. As my older brother, life wasn't going how he wanted. He was really miserable, unhappy, wanted to make changes, didn't know how to do it. So I told him, get Hal Elrod's book, The Miracle Morning. That made some changes for me. And he actually flew the day that I got home from the mastermind retreat. He flew in, and I'd been offline for 3 days, and he said, my wife of 24 years just asked me for divorce. It's like, it's done. This is horrible. And I looked at him and I said, it's the best thing you can have happen. You don't like your life right now. You have a clean slate. You get to design your life how you want. What do you want your dream life? And we spent the next 3 days going through the very, very beginning genesis of my Goals That Matter system. And he designed his dream life. And he helped me kind of refine.
How's he doing today?
So my brother, the joke was his glass was always half empty. He has turned his life around. In the first year, he lost 80 pounds. He bought his Harley. He went through this divorce with grace. He reestablished contact with his first two kids that he didn't have a good relationship with, better relationship with his grandkids, just all these incredible changes in the first year, and he's managed to keep them going.
Wow.
Yeah.
I look forward to diving into how that happened, but that pause, that blank slate, I think we can all kind of imagine what that might feel like, and to almost start over in a way, and using your process to help him start over in his life. That's really interesting. Sometimes I guess we need that downtime to do that. Maybe I don't wish anything negative on anybody, but finding that downtime's, I'm sure we'll be talking about that, but that's just, you have to have enough time to pause and reflect about what really matters, right?
Yep.
What goals really matter.
And that's one of the primary documents we start with in the I call it the GTM system, is what matters. So you've got 6 main areas of your life, and you identify what matters through all of them. Be they dreams, goals, things I want to achieve in 10 years, 5 years, things I just want to do on a regular basis. Everybody wants to exercise more, have more time with their family, have more time with their spouse. There's that. So you write these down, because these are the things that matter in your life. And then the system takes you through a process to make sure that you just have regular accountability and regular steps to move towards the things that matter in your life.
Well, today, as we go through this, I want to, I loved how you shared a win story, if you will, and something that proved out. And I hope to hear more of those stories. But I think maybe for our audience, if I can incorporate some of my crazy thinking, and you can help me apply your system, if you will, and maybe you can kind of pick me apart. Am I on track? Because I'm one of these people that is a big believer in, my motto is write it down and revisit, right? I am a big believer in processes that work for you, but I'm also a believer in improving my processes. And so I want to learn and sort of see how I might apply some of what you're doing to what I already do, if you will. So maybe we can kind of compare notes, because I'm not right. I'm just doing, mine's self-taught, if you will.
And all of us. And I mean, ultimately, what I present in the book, surely it's time somebody invented a new plot. A lot of this information is out there. It's just in how I presented it. And the system, I think the system's a little unique in how it gets presented, and the expectation basically comes down to regular review and accountability. I think those are the two most critically important things that you can do to be successful in meeting your goals.
Interesting.
We do it in EO. We do it in our businesses. In my personal business with TLC Tech, we do EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System.
Right.
It's a system of processes to help keep you on track, have planning and vision out, and then be accountable for it.
Yes.
So tell me about your process.
Okay.
Or processes.
Well, my process is, so I'm very routine oriented. So my accountability piece, people say I'm very disciplined, but I'm actually, and I'm hardworking, but I'm actually very lazy. And so the only way that I can cope with that is by creating, blocking time and really blocking. So in terms of my goal setting, I have mission statement, and I've broken my life into 4 categories. So I say I am fourth, right? So my family is first, and I have a main goal around that. My friends and business partner are second, and I have a main goal around that. And my third is my country and my community, and I have a main goal around that. And so everything that I have sort of in terms of goals goes underneath those buckets. And then I manage these things on a daily and weekly routine by writing it down and revisiting it. So that's an overview of what I do. Okay. It's more quirky than that, but that's basically it.
So where do you hold your big goals? Where do you hold your dreams?
In my heart, number one, I'd say they're tattooed to my soul. And this is great. You're interviewing me. I love it. I love talking about myself. This is weird. So interesting. So where do I hold them? So I have them written down. And so each week I come in here on the weekends and I write down what I'm going to do for the week. I have it digitally as well, but I can write it down again so that I can kind of think about the bigger things. And I sort of have this little gratitude area on my little 8.5 by 11. And I have these kind of things that I need to be thinking about kind of at the bottom. And then the meetings and that are sort of on a time limit or time frame throughout the week. And then the goals up at the top, right? Okay. So the big vision, the big important goals, one goal per of the 4 categories.
And I'm a huge fan on having big, hairy, audacious goals. The BHAG.
Mine are hairier than crap.
So the question is, are you chunking them down? And that's one of the things. It's really easy to say, I want to do this in 2 years. So I want to run, I run ultra marathons, and that's kind of my gig. Early on, saying I want to run a marathon is one thing, but you have to chunk it down.
Yeah.
So I want to run it by when. You got to make the goal SMART. That's, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time-based. But then you need to chunk it down, because it's too easy to say, okay, in 18 months or 12 months, I want this goal. But that's a little further out. We need to take a lot of steps between now and then to be able to achieve that goal. So taking our big goals, chunking them down into manageable steps, and having regular accountability around those. That's where I think a lot of people get into trouble, is that they have these big goals, but they're not taking tiny, small steps each and every week moving towards those bigger goals. And that's where we can get into trouble.
Yeah. Okay. Let's walk through that, and we can continue to bring it back to my life story if it's helpful. But walk us through a process, and maybe we can use your brother too as an example, unless that's too personal. But let's walk through some of the key points that are important when you start this process.
So a lot of them, it's typically, I've done the live GTM sessions where we work with a group of people. We've taken a few
which GTM?
Goals That Matter.
Sorry.
Goals That Matter. We call them the GTM live sessions, and take a group of people through them. And there's always some consistent things around health, around exercise, often around eating, and around family time. So let's just take food and exercise, because those are oftentimes everybody has goals around those. A lot of times people say, they'll start a New Year's goal with, I'm going to eat mostly plant-based and I'm going to train for a marathon. That's great, but we have no experience doing that. You haven't built up that goal-achieving muscle memory, as it were. So when you try to start off these really big, lofty goals, and I'm a huge fan of lofty goals, if you do it without any practical experience, you're setting yourself up for failure. So what I recommend that people do is on the training. Okay, great. I want to start exercising. You have no experience with it if you don't. Plan for 3 days a week and get it scheduled. You'll hear over and over in my book, show me your calendar, I'll show you what matters. If you don't have it in your calendar, likely it's not going to happen. So you start doing it that way. For the food, instead of, that first week, they go to the store and they buy all plant-based and they're going to cook everything from scratch and natural. And this works for a couple of weeks. And then the regular life gets in the way.
Yeah.
And that's where things start to fall apart, is that we haven't built the regular practice, the habits. You had talked about one of the reasons you're really successful is because I think the term you used.
I hope I never said it that way. The reason I'm so successful.
You get a lot of things done. You had said because you're lazy.
Yeah, I am lazy.
And the funny thing is, and I'm reading this great book right now called Change Anything by Katie Milkman. And she talks about this. There's this great idea that lazy can actually work for us as long as you've built in habits and practices. Because if you've got this regular habit of doing something on a regular basis that you don't have to think about it, now it just happens.
Yeah.
So for me, back when I was looking at my goal sheet on a regular basis, when I did that presentation, I was looking at it weekly, sometimes a little bit more. When I started doing Hal Elrod's The Miracle Morning, I started looking at it every day, because I just made that part of that process.
Okay.
So I get up every day and I do the Miracle Morning, which is, journaling, exercise, vision, affirmations, meditation, and reading. I do that every day without fail. And I review my goal sheet that day as well. I don't have to think about it. That's just what I do. I get up.
How long does that take you?
If I really want to do a shortened, I can do it in 20 minutes, but typically it takes me about an hour. So I got up, I started getting up an hour earlier. I was not really a morning person per se. Luckily, when I started training for the running, living in the summers of Sacramento and trying to train for long distance, if you don't get up at 5 a.m. and start running, you're going to be running in hell. So I got in the habit of getting up earlier and made it easy to incorporate adding this hour into my day. Gave up reading the newspaper, gave up watching news, because it just wasn't really bringing good energy to me anyways. Interesting
that you say that, because people, they they don't know why, but they can't tackle my life. It's chaotic and there's too much, and I don't know what to cut out. And you cut out a couple of things because there really isn't enough time to do everything in the world that we might think would be cool to do and be great at any of it and really achieve anything important, in my opinion. So sometimes, but people are reluctant to cut stuff out of their life, even though there's only 24 hours in a day. You can't be everything to everybody.
No, and I've got a few life hacks in the book as well. There's little things. One of the things that in the Goals That Matter live sessions that I always did to everybody, and they hated me for it. But when they'd say they don't have enough time to do something, hold up your phone for me. Okay, pull it out. Look on your phone. How many unread messages, how many notifications, how many numbers are on your screen right now? And when people look at that, okay, I've got all these unread messages. I've got these Facebook posts that I haven't read. I've got all these things that just by looking at this one piece of technology, I've now got these open loops of there's information and things that I need to deal with, but I haven't dealt with them. So I put that phone down, but I still know there's now 30 unread messages. And there's this little open loop in my head taking energy away from me. Oh, there might be something in there I need to deal with. So one of the first things I suggest is turn off all the notifications on your phone. I don't let my phone buzz. I don't let it beep. I don't let it vibrate. And there's only two things that I know about is if I get a text or if I get a voicemail. Other than that, I don't get any badges, anything alerting me to unread or numbers of things that I don't do. So that alone gave me, it's a small little tweak, but it's amazing the amount of energy that can give us back.
And then you batch your time to go deal with the phone stuff.
So if I want to check my email, I'm deciding when to check it. I have a huge thing, keep your phone in another room and do not touch it first thing in the morning. If people get up, look at their email, if I'm looking at my email first thing in the morning, I am giving everybody in the world with my email address the ability to affect how my day starts. So it's just these ways.
That's a helpful hint, or not hint, tool. That's a hard thing to do, though. That's like some of these habits. People don't think they can quit habits, right? Habits. Like one guy might like to have a couple of Bud Lights at the end of the night. Another guy might really like to check his or her Facebook and social and email all the time. It's like it's almost habit. It's part of what gives us a little sense of satisfaction.
It's actually a dopamine hit.
Yeah.
And they're actually programmed that way to get us to keep coming back and to get that hit. And there's nothing wrong with social media. I'm obviously on social media. I'm doing promotions for the book through it. No problem. Email is the greatest thing. It makes it easy to communicate. Texting. All of these are really good things. But it's being intentional about how we use them, to make sure that we're using it the way that serves us the most instead of serving the advertisers the most.
Yes.
And it's amazing how much time you can get back, not just time in your day, but how much energy. We keep going back and habits keeps coming up. This is the thing about habits is when it's habitual and we don't have to think about it, we're using our base brain. It's just what we do. It's built in. But if you're trying to formulate and build a new habit, you have to use your prefrontal cortex. That takes a lot more energy. In the book, I talk about we wake up, we have an energy battery. When we wake up in the morning, it's full. But every single thing we do throughout the day has the ability to take away from that energy. Trying to, going back to food, if somebody's dieting, going to a restaurant with friends, trying to resist the temptation of eating bad food or food that's not serving you that everybody else is meeting, that takes energy away from that battery. The cake that's in the break room that every time you walk by, you have to resist the temptation to eat, that takes energy away from your energy battery. So any kind of things you can do to just build habits and remove those kind of things.
Pre-decide, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So in the morning, if you know you're going to the restaurant, look at the menu on the restaurant when you're not hungry and when you've still got that full energy battery, write down what you're going to have. When you go to the restaurant, don't even get a menu. Just what you're going to have. So you're saving that energy to be able to build other habits that serve you more.
Well, it's interesting. I think the most important decision, whether you're the president of FedEx or an early stage entrepreneur, the most important decision, in my opinion, for success is how we allocate our resources. And
Absolutely.
and our time is one of our most valuable resources in building businesses. It's certainly the most valuable in having a successful life overall. How you spend that time, how you break it up, it's the most important thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's one of the first exercises I have in the book is to do the Wheel of Life exercise, where you just look at the 6 main areas of life, score it.
What are those 6 main areas?
6 main
I
areas.
had mine I thought there was only 4. I've forgotten a few. I got 4 main areas of life. I need to add 2.
So the first one, friends and family.
Okay.
Second, spirituality, contribution, being of service. Third one is physical, nutritional health. Fourth, personal, intellectual, and learning. Fifth is adventure and lifestyle. And sixth, and I always do this last because it is business and financial. A lot of us entrepreneurial, that's the one that we spend all our time
all
on.
your waking time. You wake up in the middle of the night thinking about it.
Exactly, and we're so far out of balance. So I intentionally made that the last one because it's really easy. When you're the form I have is there's 10 areas under each of these, and that's the last one because that's the one that everybody can fill out. Super easy. That's super easy. Yeah. But when you're looking at spiritual or contribution or family, sometimes you have to reach a little bit further for those.
Okay, so this is interesting. So there's these 6 areas of life, and some are not as important. Obviously, must not be as important to me, or I would have them maybe labeled in my bucket. So, like, some people might not feel the spiritual thing as much, and they haven't evolved to that place in their life yet. So at the moment, I really don't want to be feeling like that should be a big area of my life. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And it's not just spiritual. And that's why instead of giving one word in each, I have several words so that it kind of gives the idea.
Okay.
For that one, it's spiritual, service, or contribution.
Okay, gotcha.
Being of service to your family, to your spouse, to your kids.
Right.
Contribution, be that whether or not to your staff. Mm-hmm. Being of service to your employees, being of service to your community. So there's a lot of different ways you can slice and dice that. And when you identify what matters in your life, you may only have 3 or 4 in there. How does that feel to you? Back to the Wheel of Life exercise on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 is I'm really out of whack here. 10 is I got this dialed. You don't necessarily have to be a 10 in everything, but what you want to try to approach is to have this more balanced circle of a wheel, because if that wheel can turn easily, our life is more in balance and life is going to be easier. The one thing that I have found over and over and over is if my life is in balance, I can actually spend less time on my business. Because I've got better focused time when I'm in the business.
People bury their head in the sand. Not all people. Many people don't want to face it when their wheel is not in balance, and then the next thing you know, you got a flat tire.
Absolutely.
So I see that with people all the time. Is they just don't want to face the facts as we know them, as brutal as they may be. And so I'm just not going to think about it instead of making the corrections. What do you say to those people?
It's going to catch up with you eventually.
Yeah.
It's funny when this is my second business. When I lost my first one, I swore I was going to do the second one differently. And I did from a business management point of view. I did that. I took the lessons I learned and I implemented those in the business. But I swore I was going to start this one with better balance. I was going to go on more vacations. I was going to make sure I saw my friends. I was going to exercise. I was going to not lose myself in the business like I did the first one. Young businesses, we have to grind. We're building. We've all been through that. But 6-7 years later, I'm on one of the first extended vacations I took down to a beach in Puerto Rico and realized I was completely out of balance again. I was overweight. I had let friendships lag. I was spending a majority of my time in the business, on the business, thinking
how
only
was the
about
business
that.
doing?
Now?
How was it doing? I mean,
So
because I see, I'm an investor,
okay.
and if they don't obsess on the business, in these critical times, like startup time, you don't make it. It's too easy
Absolutely.
to fail.
But this is 7 years in, so
Okay.
I had the basis. Yeah, we have to grind when we begin that. But that's the other thing is, looking back, I could have actually spent less time during the grinding had I gone out and started running.
Yeah.
Because the amazing thing for me, and a lot of people tell me this, is that when they're exercising is when they have their best ideas. And this is absolutely proven that taking time away, going for a walk, you're having a tough day at the office, just going for a walk for 30 minutes out in nature, you hit a wall with the problem, stopping and doing something else. It's amazing how often, especially out in nature, that answer will come to us.
Yes, and I want anybody listening that's maybe in this startup world, where I'll call it my world, if you will. Even as an older man, it's taken me a while to get comfortable. I always knew working out was it was therapeutic for me. It goes sweat real hard, and your mind clears, and you come back to work or go to work. I usually did it before work in the early days. I thought clearly. I think you make better decisions when you have a routine around exercise. I just believe that, at least for me. But there was a guilt factor, I think, in leaving work to go work out, or, I don't want to be one of these guys that's walking around the building or walking, it's like, hey, I'm Iron Man. I don't do that. Even I'll do that before work or after work and so on. But I agree with you. So anybody out there, I'm trying to take the guilt away from anybody who might be listening, who's sort of going, is it worth it? Your results are worth it. And I think if you're not getting your workout in, that's a part of anybody's wheel.
Yep.
Whether that's walking or CrossFit, or marathon running. Working out and being fit is a part of everybody's wheel at some level.
Absolutely. And, let's go to the startup. You're grinding, you're spending 60, 70, 80 hours a week doing this. And you feel like you have to, because you have to get all these. And granted, there's, when we first start our businesses, we're doing everything. We're chief bottle washer, as well as the president, CEO, salesperson, all of that. But those hours that you're spending where you're giving up, okay, I don't have time to eat as well as I should. I don't have time to exercise. You're actually taking away from time that if you did those things, the hours that you actually spend in the business, the productivity is going to be so much better, so much higher. You're actually losing time by doing that 80-hour grind.
Yeah.
Take and give yourself the gift of, if you're doing 80 hours and you're having to work that hard, let's say just 9 hours, an hour and a half a day to eat one healthy meal and go for a walk out in nature for a half an hour. I can guarantee you, without fail, the energy level you have and your brain power ability to think is going to increase so much more.
Oh, yeah. And that greatness, that whether it be the brain power or the charisma, the likability, whatever your strength is that you're bringing to your business, it's like, if it goes up 5 or 10% because you're more prepared, right? You've rested, you've exercised, you've done the things that keep you more sane. What's that do to your business if even for one meeting a day, you're 10% better? 10% more on might be the difference between making a sale and not making a sale.
Absolutely. And you talked about the guilt of needing to be there all the time. This is a historical American issue with a puritanical work ethic. And this goes back, 150 years that there was a reason it's called the puritanical work ethic. But it's just become part of our ethos now that everybody is busy. And that's worn as a badge of honor. Being busy doesn't mean you're necessarily going to be productive. And so I posit that we need to slow down a little bit, take a little bit more time, work on the things that matter to us, get our life a little more in balance, and we're going to do everything so much better.
All right, let's keep going through this. I keep interrupting, taking down these side things. So let's walk us through some of the key principles in getting through this process?
So you start with what matters. That's the first sheet
Okay.
that we walk through. You identify what matters. Then what you need to do is take your list and decide, are these dreams or are they goals? And the only difference between dreams and goals, and this is a EO person that gave me this line, is dreams aren't smart. If you can't make them smart, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time-based, then they're a dream.
Okay.
Dreams are great. Keep them. But they don't belong on your goal sheet. So you take this, you identify whether it's a dream. Do you need to build an affirmation about it? I'm a huge fan of daily affirmations. And there's things, so when I was training for the first marathon, I did not feel athletic. And I had run a half marathon and my trainer said, "You're an athlete." I just started running when I was 50. I didn't feel like an athlete, but I needed to have that mindset. So I wrote an affirmation. I am becoming an athlete that will run an ultra marathon. So affirmations, I think. So again, you've got your dreams, your affirmations, your goals. And then when do you want to accomplish it? Is that a 10-year goal, a 3-year goal, a 1-year goal, or something I want to do on a regular basis? When these Goals That Matter live sessions, especially with entrepreneurs, I want to have a better relationship with my spouse, and I want to spend more time with my kids.
Mm-hmm. I hear that
Those
daily.
always show up on this What Matters sheet. So now, what do you want to do with that? So there's a way to turn that into a weekly or a monthly regular occurrence. So you just circle that I want to make that a regular thing in my life. So you take you take what matters and you move it into your life by design. So now you've got this sheet that you look at every quarter. That's your life. This is the dream life that I want for how I want my life to build. This is what we built with my brother over those 3 days. Then you put it onto a 1-page accountability sheet. On that sheet is your affirmations, your why. I think it's critically important for everybody to understand their why. My guess is you can give me your words off the top. Mine is passion, adventure, and sharing. That's my why for my life. And I can tie a lot of my goals to my why. Then you have your 10-year, 3-year, 1-year goals, and then you have them chunked down. This is what I'm going to accomplish this quarter, this month, and this week. That's the basis of the system. There's nothing hugely unique about this except that taking it from what matters and drilling it all the way down. So the what matters is the 30,000-foot view. The accountability sheet is the rubber meets the road. That's your daily sheet that you look at every day, moving you towards your larger goals.
What about people that say, I have a hard time keeping myself accountable? And it's I don't think it's necessarily because it's not written down. I think it's just almost a personal thing, and they're looking for an accountability partner or somebody, they're looking for a boss.
Actually, the two most important things for achieving your goals is regular review and accountability. I think having an accountability partner is critical to being successful. Be that a friend, not the spouse. Do not use your spouse as an accountability partner. You can have an accountability coach. Find somebody that has similar, they don't have to be similar goals, but similar behaviors. In your neighborhood, that person whose lawn is always clean, whose house is clean, whose Christmas decorations go up the day after and come down at the appropriate
Oh my gosh,
days too.
that is my wife. What am I going to do? I got to find somebody else. No, she's not my accountability partner. Trust me. But yes, so somebody that is organized, and because you don't want to have an accountability partner that can't even keep themselves accountable.
No, because if they're not going to, if they don't stay accountable to themselves and to you, it's really easy. If you show up in an accountability relationship, and my suggestion is you meet once a week and you review. Here's the successes I had this week. Here's and you're accountable for reaching the goals that you said you're going to achieve for that week. If I show up to my accountability partner and I haven't achieved my goals, it makes it really easy for him to not achieve his. And I can't hold, and he knows I can't hold him accountable. Well, I didn't meet mine, so how can I hold you accountable? So having an accountability partner that's going to achieve their goals, and we're never going to be 100%. We're going to have, life happens, things happen. There's weeks I hit 80%. I try to shoot for 100 all the time. I don't always get there. And that's part about having that accountability partner that also knows what's happening in life. We'll talk a little bit about, when the wheels come off the bus, but having somebody to be accountable is going to increase your success beyond belief.
Interesting, because I think a lot of us are embarrassed, might be a good word, or to ask for help. And especially once you've had a little bit of success, to admit that you're human, and to have somebody else hold me accountable means I'm weak. I was that way even with working out. By showing up at the gym, it's, if I go to CrossFit, there's somebody there to sort of keep me accountable for a given workout in a day. And to me, I found I hated to admit it, but it helped me, right? I became more
Absolutely.
fit by having a group and a coach at CrossFit. And that was really difficult for me to admit, that I need somebody, if I'm going to be at my very best, that I need somebody. That's a tough thing. I mean, I wonder, I guess is one of the answers, how important is it to you, right? You're back to your why. At some point, if your why is weak, you probably won't ask for an accountability partner.
And one of my favorite sayings from AA is, "Stay out of your head. There's no adult supervision in there." What we can convince ourselves of, I've had this horrible, all these things happened. I don't have time to do this. It's easy. It's like reading your own term paper in college. You don't see the mistakes because it's our brains. We're brilliant people, right? We don't make mistakes in how we think. But if you've got an accountability partner that you have to be accountable to, you have to justify that. So with me, funny little story, but coming back, I had a run to do that evening. I was on a plane. I was tired. I had just come off 3-4 days of an event. It was raining. I was exhausted. I hadn't eaten well on the plane. I don't want to run. I had an accountability call with my partner the next morning. I didn't want to, and say, well, it was raining. What, you would have melted? So just knowing that it's that little tweak of knowing I have to be accountable the next morning. And I'm showing up in this relationship. It's not weak. It's a two-way relationship. Not only are you getting from them, but you're giving to them because you're also helping them to remain accountable. It's just human nature. We do slightly better when we know we're accountable and check it off. It's the same reason I have this weekly sheet, is so that you check off what you're doing throughout the week. That's accountability to yourself. And then once a week, being accountable with somebody else. I've never seen that as a weakness. I've had business coaches all throughout this. I've had running coaches, workout coaches. I don't see it as any different. I think
were
it's
you
the way.
ever like me, where you whatever? Maybe I see it as I saw it as a weakness. I now have learned to appreciate it, but. Did something happen to you where you recognized the value, or were you always kind of open for that sort of accountability in your life?
So losing my first business in a huge dot bomb explosion was a really good lesson.
Oh, okay. So
I didn't have, my first business was a web design firm back in the 90s. I didn't have a business coach back in the day, and I was young. I was, it was my first business. We were growing super, super fast. It was, the .com. Everybody was growing. It was that really heady time. And, I thought I knew everything.
Wow. A humbling moment can cause you to lose some of those inhibitions about reaching out for help.
Yes, it can. Nothing like losing everything in your life and having to start over at zero in your late 30s to find a little humility.
Well, you and I were talking about that. If the wheels come off the bus, or maybe it's a broken part of the wheel. You had something like that happen in your life where you had good reason to be derailed.
Yeah. So life happens, and I build in a lot of these ideas around the book as well, because things do happen. Life happens, things change, things come up, and sometimes it's small. Somebody's sick, you have these issues. Sometimes it's big. In December of last year, I was diagnosed with cancer. I'm 56, and I was diagnosed December 15th, and I needed to get into a very aggressive treatment. I always set my goals in advance. So prior to that diagnosis, I had all of 2021 mapped out. I had all these things I was going to do. Here's everything I'm going to accomplish. I had my full year already mapped out and planned on my goal sheet. That changed. That going through, I knew I was going to be facing.
That was like 6 or 7 months ago, right?
Yeah.
Not
So
that long ago.
No, I was diagnosed on the 15th of December. I started treatment January 4th. And it was about 6.5 weeks of really intensive radiation and some chemotherapy thrown in as well.
Oh my goodness.
The things we think were invincible, I thought, okay, I'll do that. And then it'll take me a couple of 2-3 weeks to recover after that's done. And then I'll be able to start doing things again. I was a little optimistic. I was on my tail until probably mid to late April that there was little to nothing I could do. It really knocked me out. So the wheels came off that bus. And when when I started treatment, it was right after the first year, I had to go back and revise my goals. Now, I have a great accountability partner. And so I really had some frank discussions with him. What do I want to keep? What should I get off? And also just thinking that I could do way too much. He's like, why don't you rethink this one and this one, maybe push that till later in the year. Give yourself the gift of being able to just go through and focus on the treatment. So my goal sheet for about 4.5 months mainly was around treatment, attitude, and health.
Wow.
And I had to change a lot of my goals for 2021. The book was originally going to be published in late January.
Oh man!
I had to throw, that one had to change.
Well, I'm gonna kind of you can feel free to incorporate the message of the book in this, but I want to ask a couple of follow-up questions on your diagnosis. So you get the diagnosis, you go through. We're in COVID, right? Still, I mean, I guess some people in December. People didn't even want to go to the hospital at that time, right?
I sure did not want to, but not too many options there. And my folks are in late 70s, early 80s, and I wanted to make sure that I stayed safe for them. So I was pretty locked down to begin with. As it turns out, having to go through this, having to do it through COVID was actually kind of a blessing in disguise, because I wanted to keep the circle really small. I'm talking about it now, and mainly I'm talking about it now because I just got a clean bill of health.
Wow.
The
Thank
treatment
God.
went great. There's no visible cancer left. Now I'm just in the 4.5 years of wait and watch. But the benefit of it actually happening during COVID is everybody was locked down. So I didn't have to miss anything. I really kept it very private. I'm starting to talk about it now because now it with the clean bill of health. But then it actually was kind of a blessing. It allowed me to just be able to focus on getting healthy and going through the treatment.
What was the worst part of the 4 or 5 months?
You'll appreciate this lack of control. I never knew day to day what I was going to wake up feeling. The first couple of weeks of treatment went well. The first week was chemo and radiation. The chemo is pretty awful. I felt pretty cruddy that week. But by the end of the second week, I was feeling good. I'm like, oh, hey, this is going to be easy. I can do this. I just have one more chemo round in a couple of weeks, and then I'll be good to go. Turns out, and they had warned me, but radiation is cumulative in its effects. So after probably about 4 weeks in is when it just started getting bad. The effects of radiation on the body are pretty severe. And once it ended at about week 7 into the treatment, then I never knew from day to day. I'd have a good day and think, hey, it looks like I'm on the tail end. Then I'd be in bed for 2 days. Then I'd have some energy. And this went on for probably 8 weeks that I'd wake up not knowing from day to day. Thank goodness I have an incredible team in my company, because this was completely out of the blue. And they just said, you're out. Over literally a 4.5 month period, I probably worked a total of 40 hours. And they did an amazing job with the company.
Wow. Well, what would you say? Who was there? One person that was sort of the lead. Who took over for you? Who's the lead? Or
So Hector, my operations manager, took on a lot. He probably was working 80-hour weeks, but it wasn't just him. It was the leadership team, and it was the whole team. They just wanted to make sure that the company was taken care of. It was absolutely incredible. I called a few of our key accounts before I left, and called them about 4 months later when I was coming back, and they said, we knew you were gone, but we didn't really notice it. Wow. So the team just did a phenomenal job with the business. I'm utterly blessed with that.
That is, wow, I'm so glad you're okay. It sounds like your teammates got a chance to prove that what they can do.
Absolutely.
And it probably allows you to carve out more time to be on the Mark Haney show and do things with the book. You're building an entrepreneurial business out of the book. So, yeah, in some ways we do see blessings in disguise, and that one's a tough one to find those in, I suppose, but I guess there are some silver linings.
One of the things that the diagnosis and the treatment did, anytime you're faced with a life-altering something that happens in your life, it gives you the chance to really go back and look at what matters. And so I had to refine my goals for 2021. But once I got done with the treatment and started getting back into the daily habits, I really sat down and got to identify what matters in my life. What do I want to do? What do I want to accomplish? What do I want to achieve? How do I want to spend my time? Because I got the gift that we don't know how much time we have. Now, this ended well, and I hope the next 4 years, at the end of that, I get the all clear. But I'm very clear now on what matters in my life. That's family. That's my friends. My business is critically important. But I make sure that my family and my friends, like you talked about, become the primary thing. How much time and how I want to spend my time in the business. I don't want to do the little day-to-day. We have a great team that can do that. I want to be the visionary for the company. I want to create the vision and have people help me implement that vision. But I don't want to spend my time on the little things anymore. We got a great team that can do that. I want to spend my time building a vision.
Wow.
So it's one of the best gifts that came out of all of this.
Wow. Well, thank you for letting me sidetrack the conversation a little bit, because it's amazing how bad things, if you will, something we might be classified as bad, really can help shape your priorities in life. Okay, so let's get back to your book and let you sort of make sure we march through this and give it the due that must be done here for your book, so that people can have the proper takeaway for implementation in their world.
So I published the book on June 15th. It's available on Amazon. It's the subtitle, The Deceptively Simple System to Achieve Every Dream. And it really is that simple. It takes a little bit of time going through the exercises. You're definitely going to spend some time doing that. When we do the GTM live sessions, typically it's about 4 to 6 hours that people need to spend. But if you spend that time and you drill it down and you get to your one-page accountability sheet, I've taken a lot of people through this system, and I have seen the most amazing changes in their lives. I've got about a good dozen people in EO that have gone through it, and hear consistently how much their life changed when they went through the system. Because all of us, it's like when I found EOS for my primary business, I had been looking at all these different systems, Giselle's 6 Disciplines of Excellence. I was always trying to find a process-driven system that would have accountability, that would have regularity, the meetings, and be able to look at goals. So it's like that. It's just for your personal goal setting system. So if you want to take your life, and my avatar when I wrote this was entrepreneurs. A lot of entrepreneurs have success, but they want to take their life, they want to level up their game, they want to take it up to the next level. This is a deceptively simple system to help you do it.
Well, so it's a one-pager, but things change, how often do you sort of change out the one page or update it? Is it typically, do people write it down, or is it in like a document that gets updated? How does it work?
So for myself, they can download it off the website,
Okay.
the exercises and everything. But for me, I update it every week. And the goal is have an accountability partner that you meet with once a week. Update the sheet the night before. So I look at my sheet every day. I read my affirmations and I check off what I've accomplished from the prior days for that week. There's monthly goals. If I meet one of my monthly goals, I'll cross that off. And at the end of each week, you update the sheet. You look at your goals for the month, for the quarter, for the year, and you just chunk down the next appropriate step, be that for this week or for this month. So you're in a constant process of chunking down your goals throughout the year, marching you towards meeting your bigger goals.
Okay, so it sounds like it's got a lot of similarities to what I'm doing. I also journal.
Yep.
You journal. How do you tie your journal part of your, again, if we use my mantra, write it down and revisit. You're writing stuff down here. You're writing stuff down there. Do these mesh at some level? How do you get your thoughts, your general thoughts that you might be writing down in a journal to sort of, how do you use a journal? How do you use a journal? Let's ask that
interesting
question.
is I love my journal, and in the back of it is my accountability sheet that I
Okay.
look at every day. So when we first started, you talked about writing down goals and things that you need to do. I'm a huge believer that this is a goal achieving system, not a to-do list. Tasks and to-dos belong on a to-do sheet. These are your goals and the steps moving you towards your goals. I've had some people take my system, modify it where they incorporate both, and that works fine for them. Early on for me, what I did is one of my daily accountability was to check off my to-do list so that I had a regular reminder, go look at my to-do list and move forward on that. But I'm a huge fan that you keep your tasks on a task list. You keep your goals on a goal sheet.
Okay, so here's how lazy I am. Scott over here can attest to this. So I have a couple of witnesses here that I work with. I don't really have too many things to do because I'm one of these guys that habitually checks his phone. If I have a to-do, I either send it to Scott or Tammy or my wife. I have people that if my wife's listening, that I delegate to. Hopefully she's not listening.
Yeah, I hope not on that one.
I married a little worker, right? So luckily. And then Tammy's a super hardworking person. Scott over here is super hardworking. And I've put people in my life that sort of live with my laziness or my quirkiness. And they allow me to send emails on Sunday at 4:30 in the morning, and it's a to-do. And I send it to Tammy. She's my to-do list. She reminds me that it's basically her job to keep my to-do list going for me.
So you
but
built
I get
a
it off
process.
I get it off my plate right now. I have an idea. It might be illegible to most people, but she can finish my sentences, and so I'm just like, boom! I write half a sentence, and she's got me a to-do list.
Getting it off your plate, that's the critical thing.
Yes.
And you also talked about how do these mesh. If I'm journaling something and I come up with an idea that's a goal, I just go and add it to my Life by Design sheet because that's where it's a goal that I want to add to my life.
Okay.
Do I want to do it now? If I want to do it now, I'll just email myself and it'll show up on my next. I'll make sure it's on my next goal sheet. If it's something that I want to do in the future, I'll just put it on my Life by Design sheet because I'm looking at that sheet every quarter. You start with what matters. You've got your Life by Design, and then you go to your accountability sheet.
So diving a little bit deeper on you versus me, if you will. How do you use your journal? Do you write down your innermost thoughts?
It's typically thoughts, things that I've done, things that are happening in my life. And I always close with what I'm grateful for and a win from the prior day.
How much do you write?
Typically just one page.
Like a page or a paragraph?
Page
or something
sometimes
like that?
two.
Okay.
Depends upon what's happening in my life. And then I go back. One of the things I love doing is on New Year's Eve, I start reading the prior year, and then I finish it on New Year's Day. So I go back and read everything about that year.
Oh, wow.
And it's just an awesome experience.
That's a read.
Yeah,
I can't read my own writing.
Nobody can read mine. It's good I know how to type. I've had to go back and wait. What was I trying to say there?
That's funny. Okay, so closing thoughts. I'm just, we're kind of coming up on time a little bit, but I want to make sure we have a chance to wrap. It looks like the book's available on Amazon. Is it available on audible.com?
Not yet. And the main reason that I did that is the first and last third of the book are more written, but the middle third is actually the process. And so it walks you through building this process in the
so
document.
You need to be able to sort of see it.
Yeah, it's not really well suited for that.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so in our final minute or two, just advice to the person out there that's say, I'll call myself an advanced student because I've been jacking around. I think about this kind of stuff a lot. But to that person that maybe is at the beginning stages of their approach to becoming more aware of how to use their biggest resource, their time.
Yeah.
Person that's like becoming aware of that, but where do I start? Maybe advice to that person.
Well, I mean, with the book, obviously, Mark.
Yeah, first, get out your, how much does a book cost? $20?
$15.99.
50. Get out your Visa.
And I love the idea of somebody younger finding this, because that's, you and I at our age, we've built our processes, our habits. Our habits can be a little harder to break. Having somebody that's wanting to kind of level up their game now and looking for a system, I love the idea of that. And whether or not you're young and starting, or whether you're in the middle, but you're just not where you want to be quite yet, or you really want to elevate your game. It's just for any of us that don't have a regular system, whether it be my system or somebody else's, get a system to help you build the processes. Because if you can build those habits, again, back to habits take energy from our base brain, which don't require a lot of fuel. Our prefrontal cortex requires a lot of fuel and takes a lot of energy. Anything you can do to build processes and habits in your life are going to give you more energy and more fuel to do more.
I love it. Use the correct part of your brain put the right part of your brain on the right project. Michael Nelson. First of all, I'm so happy that you're okay physically, and proud that I have a friend that's written a book. This is not easy to write a book. It takes a very, a person that's giving of themselves, because you lay it out
crazy.
there. Yeah, and a little crazy. I knew you might have a little craziness in you, but it's appreciated. Thanks for sharing it with our audience. I hope somebody out there gets a benefit and takes something that we talked about today to heart, makes a tough change in their life, and comes out better for it. So thank you again for sharing your story.
Thanks for having me.
You bet.
Thanks for watching today's show. My goal for every episode is that you find a takeaway, something tangible you can use in your business today. And if you have a comment about a favorite takeaway, feel free to put it in the box below. And if you have a topic that you'd like me to bring up on the show, don't forget to let me know. And also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you want to learn more about entrepreneurship. Because at Haney Biz, we are always by your side.